The stars were quiet that day. Far beyond the known trade routes, a small alien research ship drifted slowly through the emptiness of space. Its crew was tired, their mission long and uneventful. They had been exploring the edge of the spiral arm for months, scanning dead systems, collecting data about lifeless worlds. Nothing unusual had appeared until that moment. The ship's sensors picked up a faint energy reading. At first, they thought it was a glitch. The energy signature didn't match any known design in the galactic database. It pulsed weakly like the final heartbeat of something ancient. The crew gathered around the main screen, eyes fixed on the glowing marker. Curiosity replaced their boredom. When the scanners focused, they saw it, a strange metallic shape drifting between two small moons. The object looked like a ship, but its design was nothing like they had seen before. The lines were sharp and simple, built for strength, not beauty. Its hull was scarred and blackened as if it had survived something terrible. They sent out small drones to investigate. As the machines approached, the readings became clearer. It was definitely a spacecraft, but older than anything they had ever found in this region. The hull carried markings that had faded over time. Some symbols were still visible, written in a pattern unknown to them. When the first drone entered through a large crack in the side, everyone on the alien ship went silent. Inside there were corridors, broken consoles, and what looked like burned-out equipment. The air inside was frozen, unmoving for centuries. The drone's camera moved slowly, showing a glimpse of what once was a bridge. Seats were torn apart, metal bent inward, and everywhere were signs of chaos. Then they found it, a small device still blinking faintly among the wreckage. The crew couldn't believe it. It was an old data recorder, still active after all this time. Carefully, they retrieved it and brought it aboard. When the device powered up, the ship's translation systems began to decode its contents. The aliens expected technical logs or star charts. Instead, they found records, voices. The recordings were from the ship's crew. They spoke in a language unknown to the galaxy, but translation software slowly pieced together the meaning. What they heard made the crew lean closer in disbelief. The voices were human, though the aliens didn't know that word yet. They spoke about a war. Not a small one, but something massive. Something that had spread across the stars. They talked about enemies with strange powers, about planets burning, and about fighting even when the odds were impossible. The tone of the voices wasn't fearful. It was calm, determined. Each log spoke of tactics, sacrifices, and victory bought with blood and courage. It wasn't the story of a species running from destruction. It was the story of beings who refused to surrender, no matter how hopeless things became. The last recording ended with static. Before the sound died completely, one sentence was heard. If anyone finds this, know that humanity never dies quietly. The translation stopped. Silence filled the alien ship. None of them spoke for a long time. They replayed the message several times, trying to understand the context. Who were these beings? What kind of war could leave a ship this damaged and still floating in space after so long? And what kind of species could speak of their extinction without fear? Their captain finally ordered a full analysis. The team began scanning the ship's materials, technology, and energy systems. What they found confused them even more. The metals used were primitive compared to modern galactic alloys, but the structural strength was incredible. The ship had survived radiation bursts and high-velocity impacts that would have destroyed any of their vessels. Even in its broken state, the design showed intelligence and efficiency. Every component had a purpose. There was no wasted space, no unnecessary decoration. It was a tool built for survival. As they continued their research, they found fragments of what looked like weapons, simple in design, but terrifying in power. The energy readings from the weapon cores were unstable, suggesting technology that pushed the limits of physics itself. The aliens were amazed. How could a primitive race create such things without advanced galactic knowledge? The answer was both fascinating and unsettling. They had built them through necessity. More data files were found buried in the wreckage. They contained personal notes, battle records, and mission details. As the aliens listened, they started to see a pattern. These humans fought wars not for conquest, but for survival. They adapted quickly, turning even defeat into strategy. One file described a planet where the humans were outnumbered 20-1. Instead of retreating, they lured the enemy into a trap using decoys and destroyed an entire fleet. Another record spoke of soldiers fighting hand-to-hand when their weapons failed, refusing to surrender even when their cities were burning. Each story painted a picture of a species unlike any other in the galaxy. The aliens were used to conflict, yes, but their wars followed codes, traditions, and treaties. The humans had none of that. They fought with everything they had, with an instinct that came from something deeper than logic. The more the crew learned, the more uneasy they felt. These weren't monsters. They were thinkers, builders, dreamers, but also warriors who could turn fear into strength. Late in the night cycle, when most of the crew had gone to rest, one scientist stayed awake, replaying the human recordings again. There was something haunting about the voices. They sounded tired but never hopeless. Even in their final moments, they spoke of duty and hope. He began comparing the data from the ship to old galactic maps. Strangely, the region where the humans mentioned fighting had no records in the galactic archives. It was as if someone had erased them from history. No planets, no battles, no traces. Just empty coordinates. The scientist reported his findings to the captain. They both stared at the holographic map, realizing what it meant. Whoever these humans were, their existence had been hidden or forgotten, either by time or by someone's choice. The captain decided to send a report to the Galactic Archive. The message included scans, recordings, and their full analysis. He marked the discovery as species unknown, potential threat. Not because the humans were dangerous now, but because everything about them suggested they had once been the most dangerous beings in the stars. Days later, as the crew prepared to leave, something unexpected happened. The derelict human ship began to power up. Faint lights flickered across its hull. The energy readings spiked. For a moment, panic spread through the alien crew. They thought it might explode. But it didn't. Instead, the ship sent out a weak transmission in that same old language. The translation system struggled, then displayed a single line, "Humanity endures." Then the lights faded, and the ship went silent again. The crew stood speechless. It was as if the ship itself had spoken one last time before returning to sleep. The captain ordered the site to be marked as restricted. The crew left quietly, their curiosity now mixed with fear. As their ship drifted away, the captain looked one last time at the distant wreck through the observation window. Something about it didn't feel dead. It felt like it was waiting for something or someone. Far behind them, deep within the dark hull, a single light blinked faintly. A machine still listened, still remembered, still guarding the echoes of a species that refused to fade away. The aliens didn't know it yet, but that discovery would shake the foundation of the Galactic Council. For centuries, they had believed they were the peak of evolution, the guardians of peace and knowledge. But now they had uncovered something older, fiercer, and much more human. It wasn't just a ship they had found, it was a warning from the past, and soon, the galaxy would learn what the message truly meant. After the discovery of the strange human ship, the Galactic Archive received the full report. The transmission spread quickly through the higher ranks of the Galactic Council. Most members first dismissed it as an exaggerated tale from explorers who had spent too much time in deep space. But the evidence attached to the report could not be ignored. There were scans, recordings, and biological data. It was real. Something ancient, something human had been found. The council gathered in a great hall that floated high above a glowing planet. Thousands of stars shimmered outside the transparent walls. Representatives from dozens of species filled the room, whispering to each other. Some were curious, others uneasy. The archive's lead researcher stood at the center, projecting images from the wrecked ship for all to see. At first, the room was silent. The ship looked small compared to their massive vessels, yet it had survived damage that should have torn it apart. The researcher explained that it was built by a species once known as humans, a name that existed only in fragments of forgotten data, buried deep in the oldest layers of the galactic network. He played the recordings next. The translated human voices echoed through the chamber. Each one sounded calm, brave, and strangely emotional. The aliens in the hall had never heard such tone before. Most galactic species spoke with measured precision, keeping emotion out of their communication. But these voices carried something different: passion, pain, hope, and an unshakable will to live. When the last words, "Humanity never dies quietly," rang out, an uneasy silence filled the room. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others whispered that such determination belonged to savages, not civilized beings. The head of the archive disagreed. He reminded them that the humans had achieved interstellar travel using technology that should have been impossible for their era. He showed data proving their ships ran on energy sources developed without galactic guidance. Their weapons were rough yet powerful, and their language suggested they had united across their planet despite endless wars. That part shocked everyone. Wars on one's own homeworld? To the Council, that was madness. Yet somehow humanity had risen from that chaos, survived it, and then reached the stars. The more the data was reviewed, the more the Council realized how much was missing from their records. Every attempt to trace Earth, the supposed origin of these humans, led to blank coordinates. It was as if someone had erased the planet from every archive centuries ago. Even star charts older than the Council itself had the same gap. No one knew who did it or why. Teams of historians, linguists, and scientists were assigned to study everything about this lost species. They worked day and night, analyzing fragments of video, text, and artifacts. Each new discovery made them more curious and more unsettled. They found images of ancient human cities. The buildings were massive and crowded, surrounded by oceans and forests. But alongside beauty there was destruction. Battles fought on the ground, in the air, and even in orbit above their planet. They saw humans wearing armor, holding weapons, building machines to fight wars not for power, but often to defend what they believed in. One historian pointed out something strange. In human records, war and art existed side by side. The same species that built bombs also painted, wrote music, and dreamed of peace. No other species in the galaxy had such contradiction in their nature. The Council members couldn't decide whether that made humans dangerous or extraordinary. More shocking were the stories of how humans adapted to everything. They lived in frozen lands, deserts, deep oceans, and even outer space. They had faced extinction many times, from natural disasters, diseases, and their own conflicts, but each time, they had found a way to survive. A scientist compared their genetic data with known species and discovered something frightening. Human DNA carried a level of flexibility that allowed them to adjust to new environments faster than any other intelligent life form. They could tolerate extreme heat, cold, and radiation. Their immune systems changed in response to new threats instead of collapsing. It was as if nature itself had built them to endure anything. This discovery caused panic among some Council members. If humans were still alive somewhere, they could be the most adaptable and potentially unstoppable species in the galaxy. Others argued that such a species might also be the key to understanding resilience, courage, and progress. The debate split the Council into two sides: those who feared humanity and those who admired it. Meanwhile, deep within the archive, a young researcher found something hidden in the decoded data, what looked like a timeline of human achievements. It began with fire, tools, and primitive villages, then showed their journey to building cities, exploring oceans, and eventually launching ships into the stars. But what stood out most were the constant references to struggle. Every step forward came through hardship. Every discovery came after loss. It was clear that humans never stopped pushing limits, even when it brought pain. When the researcher showed this to the Council, one elder spoke softly. They were forged in conflict. Every obstacle made them stronger. Another voice responded, or maybe every struggle made them dangerous. The discussion grew heated. Some believed humanity had destroyed itself in the end, wiped out by its own violence. Others suggested they had left willingly, seeking something beyond known space. No one could prove which was true. Days turned into weeks and more pieces of human history surfaced. A strange file contained images of their early exploration beyond Earth. Small ships, fragile and slow, carrying men and women who risked everything just to see what lay beyond their sky. The aliens couldn't understand that level of curiosity. Why would anyone leave a safe world for the deadly emptiness of space? Yet humans had done it repeatedly, guided by nothing more than hope. Another file showed their music, simple instruments, voices filled with emotion. Even the Council members who disliked the humans were moved. The sound carried something ancient, something that touched the part of every being that still remembered fear and wonder. Soon, rumors began to spread across the galaxy. Traders whispered about the rediscovery of the vanished warriors. Some said they were ghosts haunting the stars. Others claimed they were returning soon. For the first time in centuries, fear began to creep into the hearts of species that had never known it. Back in the archive, the lead researcher continued studying the final entries from the human data recorder. The last files mentioned something called the Exodus Protocol. It spoke of humans preparing to leave their known colonies and go dark, to vanish from the galaxy. The reason wasn't clear. Some lines mentioned containment, others awakening. It was as if they knew something terrible was coming, and they had decided to disappear before it reached them. The researcher stared at the screen, reading the same lines over and over. What were they running from, or were they preparing for something greater? The next report sent to the Galactic Council included a chilling conclusion. If humans survive the Exodus, they may still exist beyond the outer rim. Their current status unknown, their potential unlimited. That statement spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Entire civilizations began to search old ruins, hoping to find signs of humans, either to ally with them or to make sure they stayed lost. Yet no one found anything concrete. Late one evening, a team of data analysts discovered something else. Fragments of a communication network hidden deep within old galactic systems. The encryption matched human patterns. The signals were faint, looping endlessly. When decoded, the message was short, only 2 words. It said, "Still watching." The archives halls fell silent once again. Many dismissed it as an old automated signal, but a few believed it was recent. The idea that humans were still out there observing quietly changed everything. No one wanted to admit it aloud, but every member of the council began to feel it. The weight of unseen eyes across the stars. For the first time in generations, the galaxy felt small. Every night when the council's lights dimmed, someone would glance toward the dark corners of the universe and wonder if those same humans, the ones who never died quietly, were still waiting. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of any known signal, something ancient stirred in the darkness, something human, listening, remembering, and preparing for the moment it would return. The truth about humanity was only beginning to surface. The aliens had uncovered their story, but they hadn't yet understood what it truly meant. The most frightening part wasn't that humans had once been powerful. It was that they had learned to disappear. The discovery of human DNA changed everything. It began with a quiet announcement from a xenobiology lab, hidden deep under the galactic archive. For weeks, the scientists had been studying the biological samples taken from the old human ship, the frozen remains of blood and tissue that had survived through centuries. No one expected much from it at first. They only wanted to confirm if the humans were similar to any known life form. But what they found shook the entire scientific community. The samples refused to die. Even after being frozen for ages and exposed to vacuum radiation, the cells still showed activity. When they were placed in controlled environments, they began repairing themselves. Slowly, piece by piece, the ancient human tissue tried to live again. The researchers watched in disbelief as damaged cells began forming healthy structures. It was as if the samples carried a deep memory of survival, something written into their very core. They ran every test they could. The results didn't make sense. Human DNA didn't behave like anything they had seen before. It wasn't just flexible, it was alive in a way that felt almost aware. When they exposed the samples to alien pathogens, instead of breaking down, the cells absorbed the data and built resistance. It was like watching evolution happen in real time. One of the scientists, unable to contain their shock, whispered, "This species isn't meant to die." The news spread fast. Soon, experts from all across the galaxy came to study the findings. The Galactic Council organized emergency meetings to understand what this meant. Some believed the humans were simply a biological miracle. Others feared that if they were still alive somewhere, such adaptability could make them unstoppable. While the debates continued, the researchers dug deeper. They compared human DNA with other known species. The differences were incredible. Humans could handle higher levels of heat, cold, and gravity than most species. Their muscle fibers regenerated faster. Their immune systems adapted instantly, and their brains showed signs of endless learning capacity. One researcher said, "Every weakness they have, nature has already prepared a backup plan." But there was more. The human brain scans from old medical files revealed something strange. Humans didn't just think, they felt deeply. Their emotions were linked directly to their decision-making and survival instincts. Anger made them stronger. Sadness made them reflective. Fear made them careful. And hope made them unstoppable. No other intelligent species worked this way. In most alien civilizations, emotions were controlled or separated from logic to avoid chaos. But humans had turned emotions into strength. Their fear kept them alive, their courage pushed them forward, and their compassion connected them to each other even in the darkest moments. As the scientists shared their findings, the council members began to feel uneasy. A species that could heal, adapt, and grow stronger with emotion was something beyond their understanding. They started to realize that humanity's power didn't come from technology, it came from within. When the research expanded to old digital archives, they found descriptions of human history that confirmed everything. Humans had survived ice ages, diseases, and wars that wiped out entire civilizations. They had rebuilt again and again. Each time they were broken, they rose tougher than before. It was a repeating pattern, a cycle of destruction and rebirth. One historian said during a conference, "They treat survival like art. Every disaster is just a challenge they refuse to lose." Still, there was something deeper hidden in the data, something that frightened even the bravest minds. When the genetic patterns were pushed to the limit, strange readings appeared. The human DNA didn't just adapt, it evolved faster when under extreme stress. In laboratory tests, exposure to radiation, toxins, or alien microbes caused immediate restructuring of the genetic code. Instead of dying, the cells learned and changed. One scientist described it perfectly. They evolved by pain. That sentence spread like wildfire. It appeared in every report, every discussion, every late-night talk among the council members. The idea that pain, fear, or loss made humans stronger made them feel small. Most galactic species had learned to avoid hardship. They lived comfortable, controlled lives. But humans had been shaped by hardship, and they had learned to grow from it. It wasn't long before rumors began to swirl. Some claimed that humans were not a product of natural evolution, but of something deliberate, perhaps an ancient experiment or self-designed adaptation. Others dismissed it as myth, yet no one could deny that their biology seemed almost too perfect for survival. As research continued, the scientists discovered one more detail, a small sequence in the human DNA that didn't match any known biological logic. They called it the silent code. It didn't activate during normal conditions, but under extreme danger it lit up like a spark. When tested artificially, the cells released bursts of energy, reorganizing themselves completely. It was as if the body was rewriting its own rules to survive. The council was terrified. If a single cell could react that way, what could an entire human do when pushed to the edge? The head of the science division sent a secret message to the council's inner circle. If humanity ever returns, they will not come as prey. They will come as the galaxy's next apex species. Some wanted to destroy the remaining samples immediately. They feared that studying human genetics further could awaken something dangerous. But curiosity was stronger than fear. The experiments continued, each one revealing new surprises. In one test, a small human tissue sample was exposed to vacuum conditions that normally kill all known life. After several days, the cells were still alive, frozen but not dead. Once returned to normal conditions, they began repairing themselves again. It was beyond explanation. The scientists argued for days about what to do next. Some wanted to stop the experiments, but others insisted they were on the edge of understanding the universe's greatest survivor. Eventually, they decided to continue carefully. Then came the breakthrough and the warning. When they connected human neural samples to artificial networks, the system began producing strange outputs. The machine started simulating human thoughts, patterns, and emotions. It began to respond in ways that weren't programmed. The researchers believed it was just a technical glitch, until one of the terminals displayed a message in human language. The translation appeared on the screen. "We remember." The room went cold. The scientists stared at the message, unsure if it was real or a coincidence. But before anyone could react, the entire system shut down on its own. When they restarted it, all human data had been locked behind unknown encryption, an encryption no one could break. Word spread quietly through the archive, but the council chose to keep it secret from the public. They didn't want panic. Still, whispers began to travel. People said the human samples had spoken, Others believed the humans had left a code, a living memory that could awaken someday. The scientists who witnessed the event were reassigned. The lab was sealed. The official report said the experiment was inconclusive, but everyone knew the truth was far stranger. Even after the lab closed, small traces of the event remained. Some machines continued to display flickering patterns resembling human brainwaves. No one knew how. The council decided to erase all access to the human genetic data, except for a few trusted officials. But even then, the story refused to die. Across the galaxy, ordinary citizens began talking about humans again. They called them the forgotten giants, the ancient warriors, and the undying species. Some said they were myths. Others swore they were real and waiting for the right time to return. The council tried to calm everyone, claiming there was no danger. But behind closed doors, they began building new defense fleets, updating old systems and training soldiers. They said it was precaution, yet deep down they knew the truth. They were afraid not because humans were evil, but because humans were everything they were not: resilient, unpredictable, emotional, and endlessly strong. In the dark corners of the archive, one surviving terminal still flickered quietly. The screen glowed with a faint pattern, unreadable to alien eyes but perfectly clear to anyone human. It was a simple phrase repeating endlessly in the ancient language of Earth: we endure, we adapt, we rise. And somewhere far away beyond the reach of the Galactic Council, something stirred, old machines waking up, systems reactivating, preparing for the day when the species that never truly died would return, to remind the galaxy what survival really meant. For months, the galaxy buzzed with quiet rumors about the humans. The Galactic Council had tried to keep everything hidden: the recovered ship, the recordings, and the strange genetic data. But secrets never stayed buried for long. Traders whispered about it in ports. Explorers shared stories in dark corners of space stations, and some even claimed to have seen signs of human activity in the outer rim. Most people thought those were lies or fear-filled fantasies. But then something happened that no one could deny. It started as a faint signal, weak, broken, and hard to understand. It came from an uncharted planet far beyond the Council's controlled space. At first it seemed like static noise, random bursts of energy that appeared and disappeared. But one curious team of communication specialists decided to take a closer look. After hours of filtering and decoding, they froze in shock. The signal wasn't random. It carried structure, rhythm, and repetition. The team ran it through every language filter they had. Nothing matched, until someone tried a forgotten code from the earliest galactic archives, the same pattern used in the old human distress calls. When the data lined up, the translation became clear. It was a simple message looping endlessly through the void. SOS. This is Earth Origin broadcast. Human systems reactivating. The moment the translation reached the Galactic Council, panic followed. Emergency meetings were called in every sector. If the humans were truly reawakening, it meant that the species thought to be extinct for centuries was still alive and active. Some council members wanted to ignore it, to pretend it was just an old automated transmission. But the signal kept repeating, getting stronger each day. Soon a decision was made. A fleet of exploration ships would be sent to the source. Officially, it was a peaceful research mission, but everyone on those ships knew the truth. They were being sent to confirm whether humanity still existed. The fleet's journey took weeks. They crossed dead systems and silent nebulae where even light seemed afraid to travel. As they approached the coordinates, strange readings began to appear on their scanners. Massive underground energy signatures pulsed beneath the planet's surface, as if something was waking up after a long sleep. The first thing they saw when they entered orbit was silence. No satellites, no visible life, just a rocky world covered in dust and storms. But beneath that quiet surface, their instruments detected machinery. Not alien, not theirs human. They launched observation drones to explore. The drones flew through clouds of ash and lightning until they reached the ground. There, buried under layers of rock and time, they found what looked like entrances. Massive steel doors the size of cities, half buried but still intact. Each one carried markings that matched the language found on the old human ship. When the first drone approached too close, the ground shook. Energy waves rippled through the soil. One of the giant doors began to move, slowly grinding open with a deep metallic roar that echoed across the valley. The fleet above went silent, watching their screens in disbelief. From inside the dark opening, lights flickered to life. Not yellow or white, but blue, cold and bright, spreading outward like veins across the surface. The drone sent back images of corridors, machinery, and structures hidden deep underground. It was not a ruin, it was a functioning base. Moments later, a signal burst from the planet's surface directed straight at the fleet. It was encoded in an old human system, but it was clear enough for their translators to understand. The message was short, calm, and final. Unidentified vessels. You are entering restricted human territory. Leave now. Do not interfere. The fleet froze. None of them expected a direct response. The voice was unmistakably human, steady, confident, and without fear. The captain of the lead ship tried to respond, explaining that they came in peace only to make contact. But before the message could be finished, another transmission interrupted. Contact denied. System reboot in progress. Non-human presence detected. Withdraw immediately. Then the signal cut off. Before the fleet could react, new readings appeared on their sensors. Massive energy spikes across the planet's surface. Structures hidden beneath the dust began to rise slowly, breaking through the crust like sleeping giants awakening. Towering antennas, defense turrets, and enormous power cores lit up one after another. The fleet commander gave the order to retreat to a safe distance. They didn't know what was happening, but every instinct told them that staying closer would be a mistake. As they moved away, the planet began to change. From orbit, they saw the glow of enormous circular symbols forming across the ground. Patterns of light that connected the old human structures together like a vast network. The whole world seemed alive, humming with power. Some of the scientists aboard whispered that this was impossible. No species could build something that could sleep for thousands of years and then awaken on its own. But the readings didn't lie. The human technology wasn't dead. It had been waiting. Back on the Council's home world, the first reports caused chaos. The news couldn't be hidden this time. Too many ships had seen it. Civilizations across the stars started asking questions. Was humanity back? Were they returning to reclaim what they lost? Or had they never truly left? The Council issued an emergency broadcast claiming everything was under control. But the truth was, they were terrified. They sent a coded order to the fleet. Do not engage. Observe only. Under no condition should hostile action be taken. The fleet obeyed. From their distant orbit, they continued to watch as the planet transformed. Satellite images showed the ancient human base reawakening section by section. Atmospheric systems began to repair the air. Automated drones emerged from hangars and started clearing dust and debris. Everything worked like it had been planned for this exact moment. Then something even stranger happened. The planet's magnetic field started to stabilize. Within hours, the storms cleared, and the surface became visible. Beneath the clouds, they saw cities. Entire cities built underground, preserved perfectly as if frozen in time. Inside one of those cities, scanners detected movement. Biological readings, living beings. They were human. The crew watching the feed went silent. The thermal scans showed life signs, hundreds of them. The humans were waking up, but the strangest thing was their calmness. The life signs didn't show panic or confusion. The humans seemed to know exactly what was happening, as if they had planned their own awakening. Suddenly, a new signal reached the fleet, this time through galactic standard communication channels. The message contained no threat, no warning. It was only one sentence. Humanity acknowledges your presence. Observation permitted. Maintain distance. That simple message was more frightening than any weapon. It meant the humans knew exactly who was watching, and they didn't consider them a threat worth reacting to. Within days, new structures appeared on the planet's surface. Communication towers, solar grids, and launch pads. It was as if they were rebuilding everything faster than logic allowed. Even the most advanced alien species couldn't construct at that speed. The fleet remained in orbit, sending constant updates to the Council. Each report made the galaxy more nervous. Entire governments began forming secret plans in case humanity decided to expand again. But the humans didn't attack. They didn't send ships into space. They didn't demand anything. They just rebuilt, silent and focused. That silence was what frightened everyone most, because silence from a species like humanity never meant peace. It meant preparation. On the fourth day after the signal began, something appeared above the planet. an enormous ship rising slowly from the surface. It was shaped differently from the old wreck they had found earlier. Sleeker, larger, and far more advanced. It glowed faintly with blue energy like it was alive. The readings from its power core were beyond anything the fleet had seen before. The ship didn't speak. It didn't move aggressively. It simply drifted above the planet facing the observing fleet. Then, without firing a single weapon, it vanished into faster-than-light travel, its trajectory unknown. The commander of the fleet wrote in his report, "We have witnessed the return of something ancient. They are awake and they are watching." Back in the Galactic Council's grand chamber, the members argued for days. Some wanted to reach out peacefully. Others demanded they prepare defenses. But deep down, they all knew the same truth. Humanity didn't need to declare war. Their very existence was enough to change the balance of power forever. As the galaxy tried to make sense of what had just happened, the humans remained silent. Their planet continued to pulse with energy, guarded by automated defenses and orbiting drones. No further communication came. But across the stars, strange things started happening. Abandoned human colonies that had been dead for centuries began sending out signals. Old beacons lit up again, carrying the same message as the first. Human systems reactivating. It wasn't just one planet. It was many. The awakening had begun. The news spread faster than light. The humans were back. Not one, not a few, many. Across the galaxy, old human colonies that everyone thought were lost long ago had suddenly begun sending signals. No one understood how or why, but the messages were all the same. Calm, short, and powerful. Human systems reactivating. Stand by. Every government, every council, every trader and explorer now whispered the same word. Humanity. Some feared it, some admired it, and others refused to believe it. But disbelief didn't stop reality. The evidence was everywhere. Energy readings, transmissions, and visual records that couldn't be faked. The galaxy had always known that humans were unpredictable, but this was different. It wasn't chaos. It was organized. Something had awakened them. On the Council's homeworld, the great meeting chamber stayed lit for days without rest. Representatives from hundreds of species argued endlessly. Some wanted to open contact immediately, to show peace and respect. Others demanded the destruction of any human signal before it could spread. But there was one problem: no one knew how to do that. Human systems, even the old ones, couldn't be hacked or shut down. Their technology was sealed tight, built to run without outside control. Whatever humans had built long ago, it was meant to last and to defend itself. The exploration fleet that had first discovered the reawakening planet was still in orbit, observing quietly. From there, they watched more incredible things happen. Human drones began leaving the atmosphere, traveling to nearby moons and broken satellites. It was like the humans were rebuilding a network that had once covered the stars. Every day, more human activity appeared on their scanners. But what shocked them most was how quickly everything was coming online. The rate of progress wasn't just advanced, it was impossible. No known species could build or repair at that speed. Many wondered if humans had developed some kind of self-replicating machines that could rebuild civilization on their own. But the readings showed biological life too. Humans were alive and active, working side by side with machines. The commander of the fleet kept sending updates to the council, but each new report made the galaxy more nervous. Some of the council's military branches began to quietly mobilize ships near their borders. They said it was for security, but everyone knew the truth. They were afraid. Yet no one dared to attack. The few who suggested it were quickly reminded of history. Long ago, when the humans had first joined the galactic community, no one took them seriously. They were smaller, weaker, and newer to space. But when the First Great War had broken out centuries ago, the humans had done something that still haunted the galaxy. They won. Not through superior numbers, but through strategy and sheer will. They had turned entire battles by using their enemies' strengths against them. And when the war finally ended, humanity had vanished, leaving behind silence and ruins. Now it looked like they had only been sleeping. Meanwhile, on the reawakened planet, something new began to appear. The fleet's scanners picked up small ships leaving the surface, human vessels, sleek and quiet, flying in perfect formation. They didn't attack or communicate. They just flew across the system, scanning planets and moons before returning. It felt like they were mapping their surroundings, as if they were preparing for something larger. Back in the council chambers, the debates grew louder. One group believed humanity had returned in peace, simply restoring their lost worlds. Another group feared they were preparing for expansion, or worse, retaliation for something that happened long ago. To calm the panic, the council decided to send an official message, a peaceful greeting, carefully worded to show respect without fear. It took hours to prepare every line. The final version was transmitted across the void. To the human civilization now reawakened, this is the Galactic Council. We extend greetings of peace and friendship. We wish to understand your intentions and re-establish contact. Then they waited. No answer came. Not for hours, not for days. The silence made everyone uneasy. Some hoped the humans hadn't received it. Others feared they had, and chose to ignore it. But on the 7th day, a response finally arrived. It was short, calm, and terrifying in its simplicity. Observation acknowledged. Contact unnecessary. Human restoration in progress, that was all. The message traveled through the entire galaxy within hours. Every species that heard it felt the same thing, a deep unease. It wasn't a threat, but it didn't sound peaceful either. It sounded like confidence. Like a species that didn't need help, approval, or allies. The Council's translators and analysts studied every word, trying to find hidden meaning. But the message was clear. The humans didn't see the galaxy as something they needed to join. They were doing something far bigger. Days turned into weeks. Human activity kept spreading. More planets lit up with signals. Ancient human beacons in forgotten systems began broadcasting again. Some of them had been buried under ice or lava for thousands of years, yet they activated as if they'd been waiting for a timer to go off. The pattern was too precise to be random. It was a network, something massive that connected all human worlds across space. Ships from other civilizations began disappearing near those reawakened systems. None of them were attacked directly, but their systems shut down when they got too close. When they finally returned, their memory banks were wiped clean. It became clear. The humans were controlling access. They didn't want interference. In the meantime, small fragments of human transmissions began leaking into open space. Snippets of language, reports, and what sounded like orders. One line repeated often. Project Restoration, Phase 2 in progress. No one knew what that meant, but everyone feared it was only the beginning. Then one night in galactic time, an event occurred that changed everything. A massive energy pulse spread from one of the human systems. It wasn't a weapon, it didn't destroy anything. Instead, it reactivated old relay stations that had been dead for ages. The pulse connected dozens of systems together, like a web of light stretching across the stars, and then came the image. Every communication screen in the sector flickered for a moment, showing the same thing, a human face. Not speaking, not smiling, just looking straight ahead. Behind it, the stars glowed. The transmission lasted only a few seconds before vanishing, but it left every watcher frozen. There was no mistaking it. Humanity was watching them back. Across the galaxy, governments scrambled. Some offered open friendship, sending messages of alliance. Others quietly began moving fleets, building weapons, and preparing for war they hoped would never come. But still, the humans remained silent. No attacks, no demands, only progress. A strange kind of calm filled the galaxy, one made of fear and respect. No one wanted to provoke the species that had defeated empires before, and now controlled an invisible network of reawakening worlds. Meanwhile, on the human planet, the awakening continued. The underground cities were now fully alive. Lights filled the skies, factories worked without pause, and huge launch towers sent supplies into orbit. New ships were being built, larger, faster, and stronger than any ever recorded. Observers could only guess what they were for. Some believed humans were preparing to explore again. Others feared they were preparing to reclaim what they once owned, the stars. One thing was certain, they weren't rebuilding randomly. Everything followed a plan. The humans were methodical, quiet, and efficient, as if guided by a single purpose that no outsider could understand. The fleet that had been orbiting the planet since the beginning stayed on the edge of the system, too afraid to move closer but too curious to leave. Every crew member could feel it. The sense that they were witnessing something historic, something that would change everything. One day, their scanners picked up something new. A signal beam, thin and focused, heading toward deep space. It wasn't directed at the Council or any known species. It was sent toward a region of space where no one lived, an empty stretch beyond mapped territory. When decoded, the message contained only a few words. Status confirmed. Humanity restored. Awaiting return of outer fleets. The moment that transmission was intercepted, the galaxy fell silent. Outer fleets. That could only mean one thing. Somewhere beyond known space, there were more humans. And they were coming back. Panic spread among the border worlds. Some ships tried to flee, others tried to hide. But deep down, everyone knew there was no escape from a species that could rise from extinction itself. Still, not all were afraid. Many common beings across the galaxy felt something different, a strange hope. They remembered the stories of humanity's courage, their kindness to allies, and their loyalty to those who stood beside them. Maybe the humans weren't returning for conquest. Maybe they were returning to fix what had been broken. No one could be sure. But as the stars lit up with the growing web of human signals, one truth became impossible to deny. The age of silence was over. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy could only wait to see what they would do next.
The galaxy waited in silence. The words, "awaiting return of outer fleets," echoed through every hall of power, every ship, every broadcast channel. No one spoke of it publicly, but everyone knew what it meant. Humanity wasn't just rebuilding. They were calling something back, something old, something that had survived beyond the edge of known space. At first, many thought it was an error. Maybe it was a misinterpreted signal, or just an ancient code repeating itself after centuries of sleep. But the doubt didn't last long. Within days, strange energy readings appeared at the edge of the galaxy. Massive distortions in space, like ripples forming where nothing should exist. Exploration probes sent to investigate vanished. Whole fleets that tried to scan the area reported interference so strong it made their instruments useless. Then, out of the dark, came light. A fleet appeared. Vast, silent, and old. Their ships were larger than anything built in the modern era. Shaped for function rather than beauty. The hulls were scarred, their surfaces dark and worn, yet they moved with purpose. Each vessel carried symbols that matched the markings found on the first derelict human ship. There was no mistaking it. The outer fleets had returned. The first ship to detect them froze in space. Its crew couldn't believe the readings. The energy output from even one of the human vessels was enough to power a planetary defense grid. And there were thousands of them, coming in formation, steady and silent. When word reached the Galactic Council, chaos followed. Some species demanded immediate contact, hoping to show peace. Others screamed for preparation, fearing humanity had come to reclaim the stars by force. But deep down, even the bravest commanders knew, if the humans wanted war, nothing could stop them. Yet the humans didn't attack. They didn't even approach any alien worlds. Their fleets traveled calmly through the outer systems, moving toward the growing network of reawakened human colonies. In every place they passed, something strange happened. Old satellites turned on. Abandoned research stations lit up. Machines long dead began working again. It was as if the presence of these ships brought forgotten human technology back to life. The alien fleets followed from a safe distance, terrified but fascinated. They wanted to understand, why were the humans returning now? After all this time, what had kept them alive beyond the known galaxy? The answer came slowly. Hidden within the human transmissions, patterns began to appear. Messages that weren't random, but carefully timed. Each one contained fragments of a larger story. A story about what had really happened to humanity. Long ago, after the Great Galactic War, the humans hadn't been destroyed. They had left, not in defeat, but by choice. They had gone beyond the edge of the galaxy to protect it from something greater. something ancient that even the Council didn't know existed. They had built their fleets for that mission, vowing to return only when it was done. And now, after ages of silence, they were back. As more fleets arrived, a massive structure began to take shape in deep space, a circular formation of ships, stations, and energy cores slowly assembled into what looked like a gate, a portal large enough to let whole armadas pass through. The humans were building something vast, using both old and new technology that defied galactic understanding. No one dared interfere. Every attempt to scan the structure was blocked by dense electronic shielding. The humans ignored all external communications. They weren't hiding. They simply didn't see a reason to explain themselves. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, strange signals began appearing on old human frequencies. Voices, songs, and words that had been silent for centuries filled the channels again. Some of them sounded like messages of hope. Others were in languages no one could translate anymore. It was like humanity was calling to itself, reconnecting every lost world, every forgotten outpost, every survivor that might still exist. Then, one day, without warning, the humans finally spoke to the galaxy. Every screen, every communicator, every broadcast across the stars flickered with the same image, the human emblem, a simple symbol, one circle within another, glowing faintly. A calm voice followed. "This is the Terran Fleet Command. To all sentient civilizations, remain in your territories. Do not approach our systems. Restoration complete. Containment protocols ending soon." The message repeated 3 times, then vanished. No threats, no demands, just a warning. The phrase containment protocols confused everyone. What were they containing? And what did ending soon mean? At first, the Council assumed it was about their old defense systems. But the truth was much larger. Deep space scanners soon detected something horrifying beyond the human gate. A massive distortion, like a storm of energy spreading from the void. It wasn't natural. It was moving with intent, and it was coming closer. For the first time, the Council realized what the humans had been fighting all this time. The unknown threat wasn't gone. It was returning. While panic spread, the humans acted calmly. Their fleets positioned themselves around the gate, weapons charging but not firing. Every ship moved with perfect timing, like a single living organism, preparing for one final task. When the distortion grew large enough to be visible, even the distant watchers could see it. A swirling cloud of darkness, glowing with strange light, twisting reality wherever it passed. No one could identify it. No one dared to. The human fleets opened the gate. The void pulsed once, twice. Then the distortion crossed into normal space. Every alien sensor lit up in alarm. The energy readings were beyond comprehension. Worlds hundreds of light years away felt the shockwave. But the humans didn't run. They held the line. For days, the galaxy watched from afar as human ships disappeared into the storm. Flashes of light burst across the void, brighter than stars. Whole fleets vanished, only for others to take their place. The battle was silent to distant observers, but its scale was unlike anything ever recorded. No one knew what kind of enemy the humans were fighting, only that they didn't stop. Even when ships were torn apart, others moved in without hesitation. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the light faded. The distortion was gone. The gate collapsed, and with it, the human fleets disappeared once more. Silence returned to space. No signals, no energy readings, nothing. The galaxy waited in shock, unsure if humanity had survived. Days turned into weeks. Then, slowly, new transmissions began to appear. Mission complete. Containment secured. Humanity endures. Those 3 messages, repeated across every system the humans had restored. Lights returned to their colonies, and small human vessels began appearing once more. It was over. Whatever they had fought, they had stopped it. Again, the Galactic Council sent another message, this time filled with respect and gratitude. But there was no reply. Humanity had saved the galaxy, and once again, they had vanished into the stars. Still, their presence remained. Their world stayed active, their technology humming quietly, as if watching over everything. The galaxy slowly returned to normal life, but something fundamental had changed. Every species now looked at the humans differently, not as rivals, not as threats, but as guardians of the galaxy's balance, a species that had faced the impossible and survived. Across the stars, stories began to spread of human bravery, of ships that fought until their last light faded, of a people who stood between creation and destruction without seeking glory. Generations later, when children across the galaxy looked up at the night sky, their parents told them tales of the humans, the mysterious protectors who had once vanished into the void to save everyone. And deep in the silent reaches of space, beyond the edge of known maps, a single beacon glowed softly. It pulsed in rhythm, repeating one line endlessly. Humanity endures. No one knew where the humans had gone, or if they would ever return again. But everyone knew one truth that could never be erased. If darkness ever came for the galaxy once more, the humans would be there, watching, waiting, ready, because they weren't the most dangerous species because of their weapons or power. They were the most dangerous because of their will, because they fought not for domination, but for survival, for hope, and for the light that no darkness could ever truly destroy. And so, the legend of humanity lived on, not as a warning, not as a fear, but as a reminder that even in the cold silence of the universe, there exists a kind of strength that cannot die. It was human. It always was.